first and foremost, thank you so much for joining us today, and a special thank you to Will Dukes for reaching out, as we have been so blessed by many of our wonderful members offering to work with us and partner on a series of programs. We've had an opportunity to do that with Carlos Garrido now a couple of times. We've worked with Martin Morcillo from Smash Pixel, who's worked with us on our podcasts. Deirdre Nero worked with us 2 weeks ago on an immigration, impacts of COVID on immigration. We've worked with City National Bank. Got a whole bunch of things coming up for you as well next week. If you were listening in a few moments ago, we're going to have a Yappy Hour next Tuesday. We're working with Flavia and Equipause, and that'll be at 5 o'clock. We're doing an industry chat with Ron Sheffield. That'll go out shortly on what's happening in the residential real estate market. That'll be at noon also on Tuesday. And then we're doing an impact seminar on Wednesday that Eric Rodebois, Zach Evangelista, and Lillian Sir are going to be putting together, which is going to be incredibly important for those of you that are looking at your contracts and looking at employment issues. They're going to work with you to talk about a number of issues, as well as some of the financial programs that are still out there and available to you. And then we're going to conclude on Thursday with a special Good Morning Coral Gables brunch style. So those of you that don't like the 7:30 a.m., this is your shining moment, because we're not meeting until noon. And we'll be letting you know probably later today what our plan is for that. But it's going to be a great breakfast. And we'll be announcing something for Friday as well. So we're trying to keep within our normal schedule, provide you as much content and connection as possible. I want to thank those of you on the phone that have been part of some of our previous webinars and seminars, because it helps us feel socially engaged and socially connected in a socially distant moment. And we want to see that you're healthy and happy and doing well. And we miss you guys. So our team's been working remotely since around the 20th. And I come in each day and just kind of help captain the team. So it's basically a great group working on your behalf. And let us know if you need anything. We're trying to check in with each and everybody. So make it as normal for you as possible, even in a sort of abnormal moment. But things are improving. We're hearing some good news the last day or two in terms of the impact of social distancing, and that's working. So thank you. And I can tell that folks are looking for opportunities and hearing from folks like Will Dukes, because like I said, we had about 120, 125 registered, and we've got almost 90 people already on the call. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Will Dukes. I think many of you know Will. He has worked with us for many years, been a very engaged chamber member, a leader in our chamber community, and has often brought us some really spectacular programs. He's also worked with the chamber and our board on our strategic plan over the last 2.5 years. So we really appreciate his expertise. I know most of you will stay on mute, and he will begin the program. And we will make this webinar available on our YouTube channel, just so you know. We're recording it, and we'll make the slides available if Will is okay with that, to everybody who attended and those that weren't able to dial in at noon today. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for your commitment to us, and stay safe, healthy, and socially distant. Please welcome Will Dukes, Sales Partners, Florida.
All right. Thank you, Mark. And thank you for the folks on video showing that applause. And really here, the first thing that I want to say is I hope the technology works. But also thank you, because I know that even though we all are social distancing, we're sheltering at home, we've all got things to do. Some of us have probably got our kids in the background. I know that mine are in the background, and we gave them a little extra tablet time right now, so hopefully don't come up. But don't be surprised if one of my kids walks up and is asking me something in the middle of the presentation, and no judgment for anybody else if that happens also. But I do want to do a quick logistics check, because we're going to use some of the more advanced features here in Zoom. And so if you didn't see the video that was sent out in the chamber link yesterday, I just want to do a quick couple of things. One, we've put everybody on mute now, and you can't take yourself on mute, just because we know, sometimes dogs or kids or traffic, whatever comes on in the background. If you need to ask a question, my assistant Tanya is on the phone. Her video's on. She's got some lovely purple hair and is waving right now if you can't see her, but Tanya Villagran you can message her directly in the chat. And so the way that looks down at the bottom, if you scroll to the bottom of your screen, you'll see that chat icon that should bring up a window to your right. And down at the bottom of that, down here where it says everyone, you should be able to click on that and see Tanya as a host or a co-host, and you can send her a message directly. She can help you with some technical things. Then outside of the chat, we're going to do the reactions. And so not everyone may have reactions. You may have to update your thing. Some of you are familiar with that. I'm seeing some reactions go up, but if you scroll down to the bottom, you got that little happy thing. And so since we don't have applause or other things, if you scroll down there, click on that, you can throw those reactions up on your screen just to give a little feedback. And even more so than that, and if you don't have those reactions, then there are feedback buttons. And so we know that it's afternoon at this point, so some of you may need a cafecito break. And so make sure you turn on the participant panel so that you can see who else is here in the room, but also down at the bottom of that participant panel, you'll see a couple other buttons, one of them for that raised hand feature. If you really have something that you want to say or a question that you want to ask, Tanya can take you off of mute there. But if you click on that little more button, there's even some more things to give feedback, and you can even say that you're away or going to get a cup of coffee if you need to. And then the chat we already talked about, but the save chat function. So down at the bottom of the chat menu, if you click on that little three dots down at the bottom there, you should have an option to be able to save the chat. And Tanya's already put some things in the chat for you, but we want this to be as interactive as possible. We know it's not going to be exactly the same as if we were all in the same room, but if you can submit your ideas, we all want to learn from each other here. It's not, I'm just facilitating a process, right? It's not, I'm not the one with all the answers. We've all got a lot of answers and good information that we can share. So feel free to share those in the chat. Just keep it positive and supportive. All right, let's talk about our goals for today. If you would, real quick, what is one thing that you would like to get out of today? That's going to be our first little chat activity. So if you would drop into the group chat out to everyone, what is one thing that you want to take away from today? If there's one thing that you could learn or one idea that you could get that would make this worth your time investment that you put in here. We know the Chamber's been gracious enough to make this complimentary, but you're still taking the time to do it. So what is going to be that? All right. So promoting business, digital gaps, meeting somebody new, creative markets. Awesome. All kinds of things. Keep dropping those in there. I'll share with you some of the key things that are on my agenda. And one is that you just walk away with some ideas and tools to be able to shift the strategy. And why do we need to do that? And what do we need to shift? Because there's a lot of things that go into our marketing and sales processes that maybe we need to shift around. Maybe not all of these things, but definitely some of us are having to look at new products and services because, heck, the government may have completely shut down our existing business and we're not able to offer those. You may need to shift to a different target market. Maybe you're selling to one group of folks, but now we need to change that into some others. You may need to shift your brand messaging, the positioning. How are we coming across to folks, but also our marketing channels? How are we communicating that? If you were communicating a lot through LinkedIn because you were doing a lot of business services, now you may have to do more consumer service. So maybe you need to shift that kind of platform. There could be all kinds of different channels. Our follow-up processes, things I call cultivation, I mean, things like CRM, those things may need to change as well. Certainly our sales presentations and the processes, how we promote that, and how we go about getting referrals and testimonials. All of those things are going to be very important. We're not going to have time, however, to get to everything today because it's just the limitation. I do have some information in here. It'll be available in the deck. But we're going to focus on kind of the first half of this list and provide some resources and a couple of things at the end. But hopefully, if those are things that we want to learn about a little bit more, then we can put together some more of these types of calls. But then the other key thing that I wanted everybody to get today was the opportunity to network, because this may be a virtual meeting, but it's still the Chamber of Commerce. And one of the greatest things about coming to a large meeting where there's about 100 people in the room is you would get to network at your tables. So let's do some virtual table networking. And you may be wondering, how in the world is that going to work? And so we're going to do a little thing called breakout rooms. I know some of you have done those before, but some of this, you may be doing this for the first time. And so in just a moment, you're going to get a little notification come up on your screen, and it's going to invite you to join a breakout room. And all you have to do is click that. It's going to take you out of this big main room, and then it's going to open up a separate little window that pretty much looks just like this, except you're only going to be in there with a couple of other folks. And so just like you would do at a table at Good Morning Coral Gables, we want you to be able to introduce yourself, but keep it very brief. Let's just keep it down to your name and your company, that main problem or the value that your company offers, and who you solve it for. So who is that market? And then it's just kind of a way of introduction. What is the biggest change that you've seen in your business since this COVID-19 shutdown has started? And if you want to, just like you were passing a business card around the table, if you want to share your contact info in the chat, that will only be shared with the people that are in your private breakout room, but you can still save it to yours. So like we said, be quick, keep it to about 30 seconds. As just an example of how we keep that quick, I might say that I'm Will from Sales Partners. We prevent wasted marketing budgets for small business owners. And the biggest change for me has been that I'm giving more of my time to my clients to help them shift their strategies. And I've started making a lot more video content. Just as short as that, it was about 15 seconds or so, and then pass it on to somebody else. And then we'll all come back into this room in just a moment. So gonna get some nods, some thumbs up, and some reactions. Does everybody feel comfortable with this? All right, very good. So we are going to divide this up into about 4 to 5 participants a room, and you should be seeing that option to pop up now. All right, so now we're coming back. We all know that we need to shift. We got a lot of things in our marketing strategy that we need to shift, but why do we need to shift? And those of you that know me know that I grew up on a farm, and I take a lot of lessons from that and apply that to that. My good buddy Carlos Garrido is on the line here, and he knew I'd appreciate him talking about that last week when he was talking about sales processes, and he was very correct in that. But 2 things that I learned growing up on the farm that I think are relevant to our situation today. One, you can control for everything but the weather. And I know a lot of us do a lot of things already in our business to be able to promote that, whether that's from the sales marketing side, but also from operations, from legal, from HR, all of these things. But there are always things that are outside of our control that are going to affect our business. And the only thing that we can do is respond to that. And then the other key lesson that for Miami's sake, I just kind of summarized this way. You can't grow mangoes in Montana. And what that basically means is that mangoes are adapted to grow in South Florida in tropical climates. And when the climate changes or the weather changes, mangoes aren't going to grow. Or if you do get them to grow, it's going to take a heck of a lot of effort and a lot of expense growing some kind of, building some kind of big greenhouse or something like that. And so we need to do things naturally. And we need to be understanding of what the climate is out there. And right now, the climate has shifted dramatically for most of us. And if we're not willing to change something about our sales and marketing processes, then we might as well just kind of shut down, or maybe we want to batten the hatches and go to sleep for a month or 2 until this all shakes out. But the reality is most of us aren't going to be able to do that. So the foundational question, the fundamental question that I always start on all of this is, what is your business for? And you might ask that in a broader sense and say, all right, well, just in general, what is a business for? And you take a moment and think about that. Normally when I ask this in a large group, I'll take large questions, and you can drop an answer into the chat. There's no right or wrong answer here. But I hear often that the purpose of a business is to make money. But the reality is that if the purpose of a business was solely to make money, then all of our businesses would just be hedge funds, because they exist solely to just kind of make money. But the rest of us exist to add value. And so I normally, see my flip chart behind me here. Didn't quite figure out how to work that in the mix today, but I love to get up and write and draw on a flip chart. I have tried my hand at computer drawing. So some of you that have laughed at my flip charts in the past, the computer is not going to be any better. But I drew this out, and I start with this little picture of a bee. And most of us just kind of know, or we've seen the bee movie, or just, from National Geographic, we know that bees leave the hive every morning, and bees go out and they're in search of flowers. And what do bees go to flowers for? Why do bees go out in search of flowers? Drop an answer in the chat. all right, to pollen, all right, get nectar and pollen. All right, I see a lot of people talking about pollination. I hear that a lot, right? We know that bees pollinate the flowers. That's of huge value to us. But the reality is the bees have no idea that they're pollinating flowers. The bees are just going out for nectar, for food. They're going to make honey. That's why we call them honey bees. It's those ripple effects. It's those things that happen as side effects of the bee doing that actually pollinate the flowers and generate all the crazy kind of value for us. And likewise, a guy by the name of Buckminster Fuller drew this analogy, and he said, people are just like that, except that we're not honeybees. We are, in fact, money bees. And a lot of us will wake up and leave our hive early in the morning, and we'll go out and seek of something to do to make money. And hopefully we're doing that, and the side effect of that is that we generate some kind of value. But unfortunately, a lot of people go out and do that and are willing to do just what you might consider a bunch of nasty mess. And the difference between us and the bees that Fuller said is that we're conscious, we're aware. We can see what those ripple effects are, and we can see what the value is. And just by the same types of 90-degree side effects, if we focus on the value that we are producing, the value that we're adding to the marketplace, the money gets caught up in that naturally. Now, there's processes that we have to go through to make that happen, but the key here is to focus on the value. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and I'm going to call on one of my friends and clients, if I can find her and she didn't disappear. So let's see. Unmute.
Hi.
Flavia, and we're going to pin her video to the top.
Hello.
All right, so Flavia, thank you for jumping on today and talking about that. And for everybody that doesn't know, why don't you introduce yourself real quick and what you do?
Sure. My name is Flavia. I'm the owner of Equipause Pet Services. We're a professional pet sitting and dog walking, dog running, and home health service in Miami. And we're here to keep your pets fit, healthy, and happy so that you don't feel guilty when you come home to see them after a long day.
All right. Well, and at least that's what you were doing a lot of
yes.
before the shutdown.
Exactly.
And so we've had several conversations, and I know one just yesterday that we were talking about in kind of shifting this whole mentality of a lot of things that you're doing. But the thing that really struck me yesterday is we came up and we were talking about like the mission. So what is that fundamental mission or some of the core values of Equipause?
So our mission, let me read it to you really quickly because we came up with that. So it is our mission to support the development of meaningful family relationships between busy people and their pets by providing loving care with passion, consideration, and excellence so that pet parents can lead full lives while keeping their pets fit, healthy, and happy. So that's our mission.
That's the fundamental mission.
Correct.
Now, the interesting thing there is that mission doesn't really get into dog walking or dog running, right? So even though those are the primary services that you've been selling, the mission is something that's bigger than that. And I know that from talking with you and your sister and just the staff, it really comes down to a lot of passion that's there and that deeper purpose. So what are some of the things that you've already shifted with that are still in line with that mission and that purpose, ways that you can serve these pet parents and help them to build those relationships and continue that even though we've been locked down?
Sure. So we have been trying to blog about different topics on how to help parents stay sane. Just like kids, dogs are they also need the same kind of attention. So activities for them are coming up with a cleaning solution because a lot of pet parents are concerned about their dogs out for walks. So we're creating something that'll be, for sale for them. We have a fun t-shirt that I don't have on right now. That's just, that we'll be promoting. And of course the Yappy Hours people, we've already done one and we're going to do one with the chamber. So people are really enjoying that, just talking about what's going on with their pets. And we're there to be, so that's what we've been doing so far.
All right. And so all of those things, some of those things are things that are for sale, that are revenue generating, like shifting to those products. And just so everybody knows, it's the greatest shirt ever because it's totally Miami and it's perro-like.
I'll pull one
So
out later.
incorporates a little Spanglish. So you may see that a little bit later. But it all comes back down to that mission. So thank you so much, Flavia, for being willing to jump on and share with that today. And we're going to come back and share again. And so we'll come back off and like we say, we always run through the technology, and it's great when it works. So now I've got to find myself here. All right, now we should be able to share. So coming from that, going back to the gallery view, yeah, show Flavia some love there in the chat. And I believe Tanya actually dropped some of her information. So if you are waiting, or if you are in need of any of those kind of services, you can still reach out to Flavia. So moving right along. Now let's turn it back to you. I want you to take a minute, right? So we're all on mute, and this is a workshop. I'm very big about not just disseminating information, but giving people the actual space, because I know a lot of us have probably been on a lot of webinars. There's a lot of information, a lot of people doing this, and I love that. I love the sharing of information, but sometimes it's like a fire hose, and we don't even get a moment to just take a breath and to say, all right, how can I actually apply that? Or even just have a moment to take a note down without missing something. So I'm going to give you just about a minute right now. And hopefully there's a little music playing in the back, but I want you to think about what is your business for? What is the fundamental value that you're offering to society, to the market? What is the mission of your organization that doesn't necessarily change regardless of what the products or services are? So take just a minute, think about that. If you have a note you want to drop it in the chat, you're welcome to do that, or you can just take it on your notes there in your office or home. All right. Everybody have a minute there to take a moment. So we're going to go and we're going to do another breakout room. I was getting some notes or some messages back to folks. When we break out into the breakout rooms, you should at the bottom left corner of your screen have your own little mute button. And so when you go into those breakout rooms, you'll still be on mute, but you should be able to unmute yourself there so you can share, just in case anybody had an issue with that. So we're going to break out into breakout rooms again for just a few minutes, but we want you to, again, introduce yourself. We're going to create some new breakout rooms with that. But what's your business for? What's that fundamental thing that you came? Some of you have been dropping in the chat already, but share, network, get some contact information, take this opportunity to build our relationships. So we're going to recreate these breakout rooms and we'll open them up now. All right, well, let's start moving. And again, I just want to kind of give a broad overview of that sales and marketing strategy, what we're talking about, shifting that so that we have this kind of foundational knowledge, and then we'll drill down into some key questions and activities for you to be able to do. And so just one thing that I always start off with is that, we talk about sales, we talk about marketing, and we talk about, funnels and pipelines, and we have all these analogies. And really, I think those are really dumb analogies. One, because they kind of get us to think that marketing and sales are two different things. And from at least my perspective, I know everybody doesn't agree, but they aren't different things. They're just different parts of the overall same process. They're part of our revenue cycle. And again, relating that back to the farm, that was just the harvest cycle. And so I relate all this stuff back to those same kind of processes I grew up with. So the first thing is you have to plan the harvest. We'd say, what do we want to plant and where are we going to plant it? In business, we say, well, what are we selling and who are we selling it to? Who's that target market? Then we would go out and prepare the soil. And I was actually just at my family's farm over the weekend. That's an essential business, and I was helping out there. And they're in the process of doing that, of preparing the soil and planting some of the transplants. But that's just like positioning and branding your products and services. You're creating this fertile environment that you can go and grow an opportunity. But you have to be able to plant that seed. And I don't know how many times in the chamber I've met folks who said, yeah, I've been around the chamber for a while, and I know a lot of people, met a lot of people, but I'm not getting any business. I'm like, well, what's the problem? Like, well, they don't really know what it is that we do. Like, well, that's kind of maybe your problem. That's the problem. It's maybe your fault that you haven't explained to folks what actually that value is that you offer. But then we have to be able to cultivate that, and we have to be able to nurture and protect those opportunities as they grow up, and then ultimately to get them to the harvest where we're actually closing that sale and converting it into something worthwhile. And then we're going to propagate it. How do we take that one sale and turn it into a repeat sale or generate referrals and testimonials out of that are going to shorten that cycle? And again, we're not going to be able to really dig into all these things. We're going to focus on the kind of the first half here, but I want to give us a big overall picture to know that whenever we're planning, and especially some kind of new strategy like many of us might be doing right now, we need to be able to connect all of those pieces together, because you can have good branding and good marketing, but if it's not connected to your sales processes and your follow-up at the end, then you're probably not going to get the return that you would really expect to get or hope to get. But let's dig down and let's start on kind of that first piece on how we're going to plan the harvest. So the first thing that some of us may have to do is actually shift what we're selling in the first place. And that may seem like a hard, daunting task, especially if we've been selling the same kind of things for the longest time. But it still comes back down to this question of what do we have to offer? And all of us in our businesses have some form of assets and capabilities. So I want you to think about what are the assets and the capabilities that you have to offer inside of your business. Maybe that you're not offering now, but all of us have assets and capabilities. Drop some of those things in the chat right now. But just to give you some ideas, like hard assets like equipment, can you repurpose that for something else? Think about you've seen the reports of all these distilleries that were making liquor and spirits, and now they've shifted that to be able to make hand sanitizer. Ford and GM have shut down car production lines to make ventilators. So they're repurposing those assets. But then a lot of us also have skills, and that knowledge base that we've had are assets. We have certifications. We have these outside validations of certain things. That's considered an asset. And probably one of the biggest assets that a lot of us have that may be intangible, but it's still your brand. And that was kind of one of the main things that we wanted to focus on today is we have to be able to protect our brand while we're trying to shift everything else, because a lot of us have spent a lot of time developing those relationships, developing that brand, both personally and for our business. And so we need to maintain that asset and use it. What else? Is there anything else? Contacts and connections. Great, Lauren. All right. The brain is your asset. All that information in there. All right. Maybe some other experience, inside knowledge. So a lot of our knowledge and information. So now that we take an inventory of what assets that we have. All right. Now, who are we selling that to? Do you need to shift your market? Maybe you were selling to one particular market, but now you're selling to a different target market. So we break that down into segmenting and targeting for those markets. And there's three basic levels that I generally talk about doing that at. The first is the geographic level. So maybe you were selling in the local area, but now you need to sell to a broader area, or that might be backwards. Maybe you were selling in a broad area, but you really want to focus on that local area just around your neighborhood, or just in Miami, just in the South Florida region. But then also demographic. So I know a lot of us are B2B as well as B2C, but we've had some folks that were selling in a more B2C fashion, and now they're having to go and look for commercial clients. And then some people are having to do the opposite, or we can parse demographics down all kinds, and we could have probably a whole conversation just about this. But are you shifting the demographic profile? What are these basic concepts? But then the psychographic profiles are probably some of the things that are most pertinent and relevant right now, because people that had certain beliefs and tastes and preferences, they have all shifted as well. And so while we may be selling into the same geographic and demographic market, the psychographic profile of the same people that we were selling to 3 weeks ago is probably very different right now. And so we're going to have to shift what we're offering to them. And we'll get into that into a little bit more detail in a moment. So I'm going to call up one of my other friends if he was still here. There he is. So George Donna with JD Restorations. So George, thank you very much for being here.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thank you, Will. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
So George, again, tell us a little bit about your company, and obviously you've gone through a big shift, but this whole idea of taking inventory of the assets and the capabilities that you've already had, and then adding some other things has been key for you in that. So tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So my company is JD Restoration. We are a fire, water, and more remediation company. So we have 3 locations. We are about 80, 85 employees now. So, like you said, having all this equipment, all these people, what I'm going to do now. So with your help, obviously, we kind of reinvent ourselves, and we started offering the COVID-19 decontamination disinfecting services to residential, and now we're going into commercial. We're going into clinics, we're going into condos, and also hotels.
Yeah. And so it was, the work that you had done with mold in the past, I mean, that gave you that foundation, right? And the kind of the skills and ability and the equipment to go and do that. You just had to shift the disinfectant that you were using. And I know
Correct.
some of your certification agencies gave you some other insight into doing that, and gave a little extra training, but it was basically something there. Now you just had to shift it to the market. And the other thing that I saw as kind of maybe a slight silver lining out of all this, I know you had been selling primarily to residential before, and had been talking about going and offering services to commercial potential clients for a while now. And this is kind of giving you that swift kick in the butt, I guess you could say, to kind of force that.
Yes, we have to get together with the team and be like, we have to now implement this new service, and obviously commercial is where it's gonna be the real need, because especially to essential businesses, they're gonna be needing our services on a daily basis. So that's what we're being targeting now.
All right. Well, thank you very much, George, for giving us that insight.
No, thank you guys, and whoever needs help, just reach out to me, and I'll be more than glad to help them out.
And George's information is there in the chat as well, if anybody wants to or needs, and we're probably all in that need of that service. All right, so now it's time. Now it's our turn. Now it's back to the workshop. So if you haven't already started taking your own inventory right now, what can you do? How can you take an inventory of what you need to shift in terms of products and services? So again, a couple questions to help lead you here. We'll have them on the screen, but we're going to give you just a minute to work on this on your own, and then we'll break out again and give you an opportunity to continue networking and sharing some of those insights. Everybody coming back again. Now's the time. If you got a comment, something you really wanted to share, let's drop that in the chat to be able to share any knowledge or any ahas that somebody else can get value from. We're going to go ahead and continue moving on here and kind of get into the next thing. So now we've talked about kind of what we're selling and who we're selling it to. Maybe you got a new idea of that. Maybe you are still selling the same thing to the same people, but we need to shift our brand message a little bit and kind of be aware a little bit more about how we're doing that. So maybe we don't need to shift our brand message at all too, because to go back to Flavia, her mission is still the same. It doesn't matter that the services have been locked down. We may have to change those out. So those things that you consider to be your brand, I'm not suggesting that they should change at all. But what we do need to be aware of is that if we are trying to promote some other kind of process, something new, that we have to change certain aspects about it. And so when we talk about preparing the soil, fundamentally the soil is something that offers a foundation to the plants to grow in, and it also offers that fertility, so the nutrients, right? So they have to have both of those things working in tandem. And likewise, your brand is two things working in tandem as well. Ultimately, your brand is all about trust and credibility. Trust being that emotional side of a decision, and credibility being the more rational side. And the reality is that both of those things work in tandem. However, the order is is very important. So throw out in the chat, what do you think is which one of those two, trust or credibility, is the most important to establish first? Let's see some answers in the chat. All right, looks like we're getting a little bit of a consensus. All right. It's trust. Absolutely. And the key with both of those is that it has to be to that target market. And so we have to establish trust in a way that's going to resonate with the target market that we're trying to sell to. Some of us do a really good job of generating trust and credibility, and we can do things that are relevant to certain people, but they may not be the people that we're actually trying to sell to. So we need to keep that in mind as we're communicating. So a couple of things with that. Trust builders. Let's think about some of this and just kind of the fundamental, this emotional basal side. And I see some folks here I know really well that'll get into this and maybe can add some other ones. Feel free to add some other things as well. But one of the most basic ways to build trust is familiarity. That's why the Chamber has so many events, so we can get around and we can be in close proximity to each other and know that we are not at a kind of basal level trying to hurt each other or take each other's food or steal each other's mates. We're all there and we're relatively safe people to be around. But those shared experiences that we have, and even more powerful than that, the shared beliefs that we can communicate with one another, help to build this fundamental emotional feeling of trust. And then also empathy. Can I take the time to understand where you're coming from and to perhaps even feel what you're feeling? Empathy helps to build trust. And then this concept of freely giving. So not giving in just a transactional way, not doing something where somebody's going to feel like they owe you. But if you are giving something of someone that is beneficial and helping them to solve an immediate problem, oftentimes that's going to help build that sense of trust with them. But likewise, while we have trust builders, there are also trust killers. And again, you can throw some of those things out there. And yeah, chocolate is absolutely a trust builder. But some other things. How many of you have been getting emails or messages in LinkedIn or Facebook, people trying to connect with you? And the first thing they do after they connect with you or sending this email is they start talking about them and their problems. And oh, not especially lawyers. Not at least the lawyers that I work with. But if you start off talking about you, it's going to kill that trust. If there's anything in there that's going to be seen as manipulation. My buddy Carlos Garrido was talking about these sales letters that people are sending out. And I shared one with him. I wish I had time to go over it and we could break that thing down and talk about all the mistakes that are being made there. But it's kind of manipulative, right? Because he said it very well. They make you think that it's something else or something helpful, but then all of a sudden it's a sales letter trying to sell you some $3,500 coaching program. Not great. Anything that's going to come across insincere, like in that sales letter where it said, "Hi, Will," and Will was in like a different font, and you just know it was some kind of computer generated BS. And something else that'll kill trust is judging people. And sometimes if we're in a group where we have a lot of shared experience and belief, it's easy to kind of cast judgment on other people and other ways of doing things. And I've probably been guilty of that myself. And I try not to do that. I just try to share my experience, and my experience is my experience. But if we come in and start telling people that the way they're doing something is right or wrong, it's not necessarily about being right or wrong. It's about what's being effective and what's not. So let's not judge folks for where they're at or make them feel like they're being judged. And then if we're asking for stuff, if we're trying to take before we've given, that's not going to build trust. Yeah, you might get some sales out of that. You might be able to move forward and get some short-term gains. But if we are looking to get sales and to close sales at the expense of our brand and our reputation, long-term in that trust, it's kind of like, to use the Miami example again, mangoes. Like we want to harvest all of the mangoes and we do so by cutting down the mango tree. It's not sustainable. And so we have to always be aware of maintaining our trust. But let's talk about our credibility, that rational side of that as well. What credentials do you have? What experience? Do you have a track record that you can share? Do you have those testimonials and good reviews to validate that track record? And again, are those relevant to the target market? It may be great that you have experience in one thing and you have experience in commercial real estate. Awesome. But are you trying to sell residential real estate right now? Maybe that's somewhat related, but obviously not as strong. And that's just one example. Whereas on the other side, credibility killers. Your bad reputation that's getting out there. I mean, it used to be buyer beware. Now it's seller beware because everybody can go on and leave a review for you right now. That could be good or bad. If you have no track record, it's not necessarily a killer per se, but it's definitely going to be a limiter. No testimonials. And if you can't show that experience that you've gotten, because people are in a very risk averse mood right now. And if you can't show that you're going to be able to generate those results, it's a much bigger cost to them. And even if you're giving away stuff free, there's still a cost involved in terms of time and energy. So how can you limit that? How can you go and get that? We're going to talk about that a little bit later. So now for your activity, is there maybe one thing that you can think about that you need to change in maybe your communication or getting some things to add? George, that was on and spoke a little bit earlier, you know, we put together a packet for him when he was going out selling the service that showed all the credentials that he had, his licenses with the DBPR. It had the material safety data sheets for the disinfectant that was approved by a certification agency. All of this information to help build that trust and credibility. But how are you going to do that? Is there something that you can do to offer to freely help other folks? Can you share that empathy with them? And then likewise on the credibility, what can you do to show that and build that? Can you go and get any new credentials for something that you need to have and do that quickly? And here's one last suggestion, like maybe you do some things that are for free, that you go and you do that simply to get the track record, to get the experience, to get the testimonial. Now that's not going to be possible for everybody to do it at free, but maybe you can do it at cost. And understand that the value that you're generating for yourself is just being able to have that credibility to go and make more sales. So again, take a minute, and we're going to give you a minute here, and then we're going to break out in the breakout rooms and talk about this. What are some things we're seeing? And maybe we share some horror stories that we've already gotten. I think that would be good for all of us, and maybe bring some levity into the situation as well. All right, so we've got a little bit of time left. Again, drop your comments, drop your aha moments, drop anything great in the public chat that you can share with everybody else, any lessons, because we're all learning from each other. All right, kind of our last big section that we want to talk about here is kind of this marketing idea and how do we shift our channels and the offers. And so when I talk about a marketing channel, it's just whatever we're doing to communicate with our target market. And so that, you know, we could be online, but even the old things like, I'm jumping ahead here, but the offer is that opportunity to take action. So some channels that are out there, we'll just jump ahead with that. You've got organic types of channels, and these are the ones where you're going to be investing time. Some of us may have a lot more time right now on our hands to be able to invest in things. So what can you do for networking and referrals? Obviously, we're not going to meetings like chamber meetings, but you can still come to something like this. You can get on LinkedIn. You can reach out to folks. You can still have conversations with your existing and your past clients to generate referrals, and that doesn't really cost you anything other than time. What can you do for content? I've been having conversations with friends and business associates talking about what's going on with them from different perspectives and creating that video content and being able to share that. And cold calling prospecting. And I have a little note there for my buddy Carlos as well, because we have a difference of opinion. He'll tell you that that's a sales function, and maybe at one day it was, but I think that cold calling and prospecting is actually a marketing function because it's all about lead generation. But regardless, we'll see what he has to say about that. That doesn't really cost you anything to get on the phone and to pick it up and call things. And some people might say cold calling is out right now. I disagree. George Donna was talking about, he's got a service that a lot of people need. I've told him to actually send people in before they really shut down all the non-essential things. And even though his business is essential, they said, well, the sales was kind of non-essential, so he couldn't walk into businesses, but they are absolutely reaching out to folks because he has something of extreme value right now that people need. SEO is another example of that. You can be putting some time into that to get your search engine optimization. But then on the other side of that, rather than organic, we could go conventional or paid. I think of that in the farming analogy of as fertilizer, right? So we have some money to be able to throw at that. We don't have as much time. And so any kind of advertising, whether it's online or it's offline, are you doing promoted content? So it may be kind of this branding type content where you're not necessarily doing a hard sell or there's no offer attached to it, but you're trying to extend your reach. And still doing things like direct mail. Everybody's stuck at home. People are actually taking time to go through their junk mail these days because they have nothing better to do. So all of these things may not work for you. I'm not suggesting that, but think about the different things that are out there, and maybe you can take some extra time or you have some extra money to put at some different things. This is not the time to pull back on your marketing. This is the time to get very focused on your marketing. And if you have that extra money or just the same amount of money that you continue to put at marketing, continue to do that. Let's just be very, very focused on how we do that. and keep it relevant to that target market. Now, on offers, coming back to, we were talking about cold calling or reaching out to folks, and people are asking like, all right, what's the offer? How do we need to change things? And maybe you do absolutely, because like I mentioned before in that weird sales email I got, the guy's like, oh yeah, my coaching program is normally $5,000, but for the next few days only, or until I get 10 participants, it's only $3,500. Well, that changed the offer a little bit, but that's not really what we're talking about here. And so some ideas. What is something that you can offer that is low risk to them, but can potentially offer a high return on the back end? So an example, you could invite somebody to an event. You could literally be cold calling out to folks and say, hey, I'm this person. I'm not trying to sell you anything necessarily, but I would want you to invite you to this event that's going to be relevant for people in our industry. That's very low risk, but potentially a high return for them, and it helps you to build to build that rapport and to build your brand. But if you are still trying to sell something, maybe you can do a free trial or a low-cost trial. You could do a pilot program where maybe you're typically trying to roll it out to an entire organization, but now you're trying to scale that back and say, look, we don't need to go out to the entire organization. We can just do that in a small pilot. And so now we're lowering the risk for our potential prospects. Now, we still need to have brightness of the future in any offer that we're making. So, when folks come out, and what I mean by this is sometimes we make offers and we're really trying to enroll people into, things that are going to happen months or years down the road if they just start right now. But the reality is, in not all cases, but many of them, focus is right in front of us right now. How are we dealing with this present problem? Because I'm not going to really care about 2 years down the road if my ship is sinking right now at the moment. What can you do to help me plug the leak? That's where we have to shift our offers as well, and just be empathetic, and we have to be realistic and aware of what's going on. How can we provide that immediate relief? Now I'm going to call, and where did he go? My brother Ricardo Trios. There he is. So I'm going to bring Cal off of there. And many of us know and love Ricardo Trios because not just because of the wonderful chocolate he makes, but because he's such a great person. But Tio Cal, as I say, everybody knows that you are the chocolate man. But
yep,
things have dramatically changed for you as well. And some folks, probably a lot of folks on this call have been to your to your shop down in the Pinecrest area, and do your retail, but realistically, a lot of your business was actually in wholesale.
Yep.
And so, tell us about some of the things that you've had to shift around. And yes, and brownies are fantastic.
Well, almost everybody knows me through the chamber. We do B2B to corporate, and also through a retail store, but our bread and butter is actually wholesale account. So to give you an idea, we work with major hotels from the turn down service all the way to amenities, and we also make some of the chocolates that the pastry chefs are going to use for some of their high-end restaurant desserts. With that said, also, other of our strongest partners is Miami International Airport, all the locations that we sell the chocolates there. But they've been pretty much shut down since March 15, and things are not going well for them. And obviously, it's a dominoes effect. So here at Cow Chocolates, we've had to let what are the businesses that are still COVID-19 proof, and what others are, being really affected as far as our clients. One of our best clients, and one of the ones that we haven't stopped selling, it's Mylands Market. For you guys that don't know Mylands or don't go there, I encourage you, please. That's a family business. It's a role model for all of those family businesses in our community. These are great people to work with. We've been working with them for 5 years, and I guess we've sold in a month. What pretty much we sell in 3 months, and they're still pushing our products. They making sure that everybody benefits in the middle of this chaos, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh,
Which is awesome. So,
well,
yep.
Ricardo, one of the other things that you know, in terms of the shift or the new things that you've been doing, I know I've taken advantage of, and some other people here, you know, you didn't do a lot of delivery before, but you're definitely doing more of that now, and you're doing these survival packs, right?
Yes.
So just kind of a mixed box of chocolate. I call it the Forrest Gump box, because you never know what you're going to get, but you know it's going to be good, right?
Yeah.
So you're delivering that.
Exactly. So, I mean, we offer delivery here in Miami, but with our open retail and people being able to, you know, just drive around, it was just an option. Now people are staying at their homes. We create these quarantine box or quarantine packages, which are basically you select what you want as far as it's kind of like a Forrest Gump. You select the value, and we get it either shipped or delivered to you. And it's been amazing because we do have an online presence, but many people that have been our clients for years, they didn't realize that they could order online. It was that easy. It was that simple. So, I mean, we've been very active. And one of the things that we're doing is we're hiring deliveries. So there's a delivery fee. Yes, there is. But we're using either waiters or waitresses, people who work in the restaurant industry, that they're not getting hours, they're not getting paid at the moment. So what you pay for delivery fee is directly to these guys, and you know, it's a way to help them also.
Yeah. Well, and then, so on top of that, right, so that's a different channel, right? So a different distribution. And one of the other things, and that's maybe not quite as wholesale, but I know that you're doing for one of my other clients, is actually leading a virtual chocolate tasting. So if people are looking for ways to continue building their brand or to reach out in this time and serve folks, you know, they can contact you and set up an event where, you know, you'll send everybody a little chocolate box, and then actually lead everybody through a Zoom call like this. And now they get the benefit of having brought everybody together and set it up. And that becomes a good channel for you to distribute and sell in as well.
Correct. It's something very simple, yet extremely fun. We're gonna do this next Monday with Vanessa Vasquez Lara Group, and we have right now, I think we have over 35 participants. Everybody who register will receive a chocolate box that we're gonna open together, and we're gonna go through a chocolate tasting together. This is the first time we do it online, but to give you an idea, we've done probably bit more than 500 tastings during Cow Chocolate's trajectory. So this is just a fun thing to do and just to adapt. So yes, we've been getting emails from other companies that they want to do this with their employees, either with their employees or with key clients that they just want to think outside the box, and they say, you know, you're bored, we're bored too. Why don't we do something through this guy that we'll make it fun and we'll learn something, and we're gonna eat some chocolates. You're gonna receive the chocolates, and why not? And you know, also for us, it's another business idea.
Very good, very good. All right, Cal, I thank you so much for jumping on and being able to share some of that and some of your experience right now.
Thank you.
We are going to move pretty quick, and we're going to actually forego this. One of these channels for the last channel to jump into things, because I know we're kind of running up on time here. But what are some channels that you can all use? And we'll let you jump back on into the gallery view. Are there more relevant channels? You know, do you need to go from advertising on Facebook to now advertising on LinkedIn because you're going from B2C to B2B? You know, child to choose that. And then can you shift your offer to something else? Is there something that you can offer for free or as a pilot, something that's an easy first step that's going to be low risk and high return, right? I'm going to give you just a minute to still work on that, and then we'll share together at the end. All right, so like I said, we're going to not break out right now for the sake of time. That was the main focus of what we were trying to get to today, you know, brand and our marketing channels. I did want to leave you with some of those other thoughts around that, and so you just have some resources. Again, we're going to send out this deck. We're going to send the recording of everything for that, maybe even post it up on Facebook. But in cultivation, you know, how do we nurture and protect our opportunities? So how are we following up with value? Can you add value that's not related to a sale? So again, something like an invitation to an event or some other kind of guide or information that would be helpful to them. And likewise, keeping timelines and accountability. So if somebody said that you're going to follow up or you're going to have another meeting, like making sure that you actually are reminding that. It's easy at this point to kind of back off and say, oh, everybody's busy, everybody's freaked out, but it's also important to hold that space. And if people tell you no, by all means, like, we don't need to waste our times, but staying true to your word and keeping accountability is going to be key. In terms of protecting our opportunities, this really has to come in how we differentiate from the competition. And again, we could go into a whole nother workshop just on this concept, but 3 types of competition that I think are important for people to think about. You have your direct competitors, people that offer the exact same types of products and services that you do. But then you have indirect competitors, right? So it might not be the same type of product or service, but it may be an alternative. So if you're a CPA, somebody may come to you for tax preparation, or they could go to H&R Block. And you might say, well, that's not exactly the same at all, but it is an alternative that people could use. And then the other competition that a lot of us fail to think about, the status quo. So what happens if people do nothing? And how do you differentiate the value that you can provide from what people are going to experience if they do nothing? So that's that cultivation side. Now, how do we harvest at the end? And this is 10 quick questions where I'm going to run through these very, very quickly, just to give you an idea. But people have these questions running in the back of their mind, whether they're conscious of them or not. And if you do not answer these questions through the questions that you ask or the information that you give, people are going to have a hard time moving forward with making a decision. So the first thing, do you give me any reason not to trust you? And these are the things that we've heard a lot. We've talked about some of them here as well, but it may also be the way that you dress or the tonality that you have. Are you showing up late on time? Any reason that gives people a reason to not trust you is working against you. But then after that, we have to get very specific. And people want to know that you understand their problem. Do you understand my problem? Are you communicating to me specifically, or is it just generic? And to really show that, you have to be able to show that you understand why it's a problem for me. So 5 people may have the same problem. Right now, as Mark was saying earlier on a break, the barbershops are closed down. So we're all in need of a haircut. But the reason that Mark needs a haircut may be different than the reason that I need a haircut, or the reason that Yvette needs a haircut, or Alex or Jonathan Jonathan doesn't need a haircut. He's nice and slick there. He can pick that. But the specific problem that people are experiencing. Do you understand the outcome that I want? Sometimes we're selling solutions that people have no benefit of, or people don't actually want. So are we taking the time to be empathetic with them? But then once we've done that and we've built that trust, now we can get into how we're proposing that solution. And do people understand that solution that you're offering? And do they believe that it can work for them in their situation? Not just in a generic fashion. All right, it's great. It's somebody else worked for, but will it work for me? And if you can do that, do they believe you can actually pull it off? So this goes back to your credibility and your track record. And then all of those questions need to be answered before people get down to price. I know people will jump to price often, but that's where we need to hold back and say, wait a second, let's talk about some of these other things first. Because if people are just buying on cost as well, then they're probably not the right types of customers even in this time. But once people know all this stuff and understand the cost, then they're going to make this value proposition and this value judgment in their mind. Is it worth it? And so asking the questions ahead of time, things where you're comparing them to the status quo and the competition and other things that are happening, that's the information that they're going to have ahead of time. Now, once you've given the cost, now they're making that judgment to say, is it worth it? And if they do believe it's worth it, probably because you've made it low risk and high reward, now they need that, what do I do next? And this is where you're actually asking for the sale. You're asking for the order. You're letting them know the next step is we do this. Are we ready to move forward? Going through a sales presentation, whether you're selling IT services or real estate or legal services, doing a potential new client consultation, it all follows the same type of process. Then the last big thing there, we're not getting into all of these things on repeat sales, but I do want to give this testimonial story arc, because I see a lot of people we're reaching out, we're asking for testimonials. I was just doing this with one of my clients today. There needs to be a story to that testimonial to make it compelling to folks. How do we go from the situation that they were in and the problem that they were having And then what solution did you provide them after they met you? And then that solution generated them a generic result that maybe other people could have gotten the same results, right? So, Mark could have gotten a fresh haircut, and I could have gotten a fresh haircut, and Flavia could have gotten a fresh haircut. But the value that we all experienced is going to be unique and specific to us. And so we need to be able to communicate that unique value, because that's what ties back into the emotional side. So look for these stories and don't be afraid to go back and ask folks if they've given you kind of a testimonial that is just, affirming you as a good person, or I got a lot of value, or they're great. Those are wonderful reviews and testimonials to have, but go back to them and relate to them. Like, this is the story of how we work together, and this is the situation that you were in, and offer those and see if you'd be willing to do that. And so my last friend that I am going to ask to come up, where did he go? Don't tell me he dropped out. There he is. Chris Colston. How are you, sir?
Doing well, my brother. How you been, man?
Doing well, doing very well, as good as can be imagined. So, we've talked about this a lot, and a lot of people here obviously know you from the chamber, and you've done some great things for folks here, and know that you work with people on improving their credit, and whether that's from repair or taking it to the next level. But when we had worked together in the past, I know you had been hesitant about asking people for testimonials, because maybe you thought it was something that they wouldn't want to share. But actually, that's turned around and worked out well for you, being able to shift that, right? Uh-oh.
It has been a huge catapult for me and my business, just because it's so difficult to come to someone and share a story where you messed up with your credit, or you messed up financially, or you're just going through tough times, and to be vulnerable is very difficult to do. So when people come to my firm, and actually when friends of mine, personal friends, chamber friends, come to me and ask me for help, it's so great for me, because a trust worth is there that I've been building, I've been devoted to, and I've been a chamber member for about 10 years now. So it just makes it so much greater. There's so much emphasis, so much work, so much sympathy and empathy that we put together. And then when they give us a testimonial and they describe everything in detail, and they put it up in our Google, that it says there their first name, last name. So when I have clients that are either on the fence, they don't know what to trust, they don't know what to do, I send them a link to my Google page, my Google review page, and I tell them, I'm like, don't believe me. I know you got referred to me, but don't just believe me or the referral source. See everybody else that's talking about me. So, when I get a client that is extremely happy, that's doing well, I ask them, can you leave me a Google review? Is that something you'll do? And 10 out of 10 times, Will, they say yes. Not even 9 out of 10. 10 out of 10 times they say yes.
And because you're asking them also when they're, when they are happy, when they've gotten that great result too. And so, we might not necessarily be able to do that, but if we're reaching back, but still, we know those people that we added a lot of value to, and those people that already talk good about us. We're just asking them now to put it down in writing and to add it to our profiles or Google review.
Like right now, I left you a great review. You've been with me for such a long time, guiding me, and with my business for 2-3 years, and literally it was something that I felt from my heart that I had to do. You changed my mindset on what to do, and it's just great just to be able to bounce things off. And Mark and I had a conversation about last week. This is a perfect thing, and Mark and the chamber are doing such a great job. It's not about your net worth, it's your network. Your network is actually your net worth. Like right now, doing all this together, guys, this is literally what's going to push us to the next level. And I'm so thankful to have you guys and be here in this meeting right now.
We're thank you for you, sir. And so we're going to wrap up. I'm just going to jump to the end and share a little other information before we break up. I still want to give us some opportunities to break up into some groups and to continue to network live. And so we'll leave the chat open for a while and whatnot. But what's the biggest takeaway that you're taking today? What kind of shift in your revenue strategy do you need the most? Like we said, it's not all of them. It's not all of them that we all necessarily need to do, but maybe it's one of them. And so, you know, we'll skip after that. We love your feedback. And let me see. I did want to take one. Let's see. I did want to take one quick poll of the folks that are still here. You know, we talk about all these different pieces. You should have a poll window that's popped up in your window. If you could take a second and maybe check on a couple of those items, like what are the things that you need to work on the most, or the things that maybe you need to learn on the most. Awesome. Thank you for those answers that are coming in there. We'll leave that poll open. Yeah. Yes, and you can do a couple of you can answer more than one thing, certainly. All right, so we'll leave that open still for a little bit longer. And again, you can send information to me. All this was brand new, how we do something like this, how we do it online versus in a live action. So I definitely love your feedback. Good, and I'm not opposed to bad feedback. I actually relish getting kind of the negative feedback too. What can we improve? That's what makes us better. So please share that with me. And then also, if there's any one particular thing of this, you know, we've gone over a lot of the information already. And if you go on my website to salespartnersflorida.com, and you just need somebody to talk over some of these things, maybe one piece you want to jump on there, I've added an option there. It's completely free, the C19 strategy shift call, and you can schedule one of those. My assistant Tanya has made those available as well. Find us all over the place. I think Tanya's dropping those in there. But if you just want some one-on-one to go this and get some feedback on what you're thinking about, you can do that. You can also just email me directly. There's my email, or connect with me on LinkedIn if we're not already connected. I know we're connected with a lot of folks here right now. And so I think we're going to end the polling. Thank you all for that. And I'm just going to take everybody off of mute because we're kind of shrinking down. And you let me know if you want to jump into a small breakout rooms. We can do that again, or we can all take the time here. Everybody's off mute now. So what all did you think? How did this work out? Was it beneficial for you all in kind of this format and doing it? I had no idea how it was going to turn out, so you have to let me know.
Great job, brother. Will, this is so great. I'm so excited about my chocolate tasting. I'm thinking of little L. Since Ricardo did his presentation, I've been licking my fingers, but there's no chocolate there.
Awesome. I mean, Mr. Dukes, like you can host I don't know how many meetings, and the knowledge and the value in every single meeting is always increasing. So thank you so much. I mean, I'm a big fan, and the way you teach is outstanding, brother.
Yeah, great job.
Great job.
Thank you for that. Now,
I really loved your planting analogy.
very good.
Very motivating. Thank you, Will.
Yeah, it was really great.